Does anyone have any final questions or thoughts? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the general assistance meeting.
Make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Renee Salvino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Moving now into our last meeting, which is for the senior fund. We do have minutes for the monthly meeting of February 13th, 2024, and this includes February 28th, 2024. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Denise Lavina,
Seconded.
second by Karen Johnson. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We didn't have any bills for senior fund this time around. Again, most of them were approved at our last meeting, which was just last week. So no motion here is needed. Moving on to the next item, do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the bus report and new business. So I do have a copy of a bus report in everyone's packet. This time around it is 2 pages versus the traditional one. In the first page, I'd like to point out that for the month of February, we had 472 trips, and there was 19 days in which the bus was operational, for an average of just under 25 rides per day, or 24.8. If we look on the next page, in Exhibit B, we see that the average number of rides for 2024 so far is 472. And note that this is an increase from 435 that we saw last month. And then in Exhibit C, all I did was I just graphed the average rides per day over time. Generally speaking, we're in the high 23s, mid to high 24s. November was an outlier, but again, our buses were experiencing some repairs. Does anyone have any questions on the bus report? Moving on to our last point of discussion, and I did introduce or plant some seeds at our meeting last week, and I'll give a quick refresher to the board. But for a little bit of context, there used to be an old Target building in Romersville, right along Weber Road, for anyone who hasn't seen it. And it used to be a Target building, but it's now what's called the Innovation Center. And the Innovation Center, the best way to describe it in layman's terms, is it's like a mall, but for senior services. The first phase did just open just a few weeks earlier. One of the nice perks about it is it opens a lot of senior services. So, for example, it offers yoga, bingo, etc. It's structured in a way that the hallways are actually a walking track to allow for seniors to walk during the day, as that was a highly requested item. And then, of course, office spaces for partners to come into the Innovation Center. And so, the village of Romeoville has a very large space there. Some other partners are starting, for example, Friends Over 50. There is a health clinic there as well. But I've been having some meetings with the executive director of the Innovation Center for the past few months, and I have also invited Trustee Karen Johnson, Trustee Denise Lavino, and I've invited the rest of the board. If anyone else would like a tour, please let me know. We can arrange that. My staff has also visited the Innovation Center, and the Innovation Center has proposed to us potential to partner with them. Now, what a partnership would look like, there's kind of like a 2-part agreement. So first is the potential for us to lease the space there. And then second is for us to provide some sort of financial contribution. Now, I want to emphasize that we're not here today to make a decision. There's no motion on the agenda. If anything, it's just for us to discuss our initial thoughts. But as far as leasing a space, there are 2 options. There's one for a 408 square foot office space, one for 1,000. For me, and I've discussed this with Trustee Salvino, if we were to go with an option, I think the no-brainer is the 408 square foot space. One, because we don't need that much space, and then 2, the nice thing about this office space in particular is it's right at the front. It's right at the entrance of the Innovation Center. It would give us just excellent exposure, and it's just enough space to fit, like one person and then some other items. If we were to lease this, the annual cost would be a little under $11,000, or $10,608, which is about $900 a month. Now, that includes utilities, maintenance, Wi-Fi, etc. Another thing too, because I've been considering all the factors, is we wouldn't need to incur additional cost for IT. We have an additional computer upstairs due to someone that used to work at the township a few months ago. We could bring that in. We have additional furniture in my office. We wouldn't need to purchase anything new other than a telephone. And the telephone is about $250 that we have to buy. So we could move right in if we deem it appropriate. As far as uses for this office space, I'd say it's quite fitting, but one idea is for the township officials to kind of rotate through this office. One day it could be myself, another day someone from the supervisor's office, the next day could be the clerk's office, the next day the assessor's office, the next day Veterans Affairs, etc. The way I see it is we could treat this office as like a Lockport Township Express, if I could call it that. Because one skill set that all of our workers have is the ability to notarize, provide a lockbox program, as well as the medical closet. And I think it would be excellent for us to have a presence on that side of the room. So this is something we could consider. Again, I'm just getting the ball rolling with the board. The second part to this partnership with the Ovation Center is that many of the partners they have, I have given them a financial contribution. And financial contribution is separate from the lease. It's just solely in support to kind of get the Ovation Center going, but also to be used for senior services. And that amount is whatever the board is comfortable with. And as far as what the Ovation Center, I guess, could offer in return, or what partnership means, is it would mean, no rental fee for any of the spaces inside, unlimited use of the office spaces inside, participation in all senior activities, of course, digital marketing, like printing, newsletters, etc., and then also use of outdoor space like the parking lot. So, I think this would be an interesting endeavor for us to consider. And having said that, I'll open it up to the board, but first I'll defer to Trustee Johnson and Trustee Salvino to see if they have anything they'd like to add.
I had a question of the main ballroom or banquet room rather that they have. I know because of the pandemic they have trouble getting the parts for the HVAC in there. Do you know if that's been resolved yet or whatever, when that banquet room might be ready for usage?
I thought they were still working on that with the HVAC system, but I mean, they're plugging through in the kitchen area of it, so I thought they were hoping like by the end of the year to kind of be done.
Because I know we talked about maybe having the senior breakfast and maybe the veterans dinner or breakfast there, but maybe not this year. But I was just wondering if they had more time since
Yeah,
the last
I was gonna say, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it's
They
been
didn't give us
operational.
they didn't
Right.
give us a definite.
Yeah, but what's interesting is they did actually host the Romeo Chamber of Commerce. They have monthly breakfast meetings, and they did host them in the Innovation Center in that ballroom. So I guess it might be available to the public, but I guess just not open. Right.
Well,
Well,
they're
they also
having-
have those for smaller rooms that can become,
for triad, we talked about
Right.
alternating triad, one
Yeah.
month on this side, 1 month on
Yeah,
that side.
and I want to provide some additional context. I know I'm kind of putting this on the agenda for us to discuss, but this isn't an unwarranted discussion. I will say part of the reason that I proposed this is because, my office as well as other offices as well have received feedback and thoughts from a lot of residents. I know every time I meet with many residents, one of the first questions I get asked, even at Triad, is regarding updates on the Innovation Center, because there is this misconception that the Innovation Center is part of the county and is associated with the township, and that's not true. It's through Wood County Senior Services, which is its own independent nonprofit. They didn't receive any, county funding. So we do get a lot of interest from seniors, but at the same time, a lot of feedback I have received is regarding the location when we have our events. So of course, there's that pesky bridge that no one wants to go over. And so when we have events in Lockport, for example, in this building, we tend to mainly get people from Lockport. When we have events on the other side of the bridge, for example, like the senior breakfast, we tend to get more people from that side, normally in the Presto. And so like, and it's, I say, it's not really that, I don't think it's that bad, I go past that bridge every single day, but, you know, everyone's different. So I think us having a presence at the Innovation Center will kind of, you know, address those pieces of feedback, because it would give us a presence there, it wouldn't really be that much more additional cost, and we'd be able to host events on that side of the river as well.
What's the lease requirement, how many years for that 10,608?
Sure, so there are several options. One is a 5-year lease, and that's $10,600. There's a 7-year lease and a 10-year lease that are slightly, that, you know, have a slight decrease in cost. For 7 years, it's $10,200. For 10 years, it's $9,792.
Not a huge savings considering
Right.
extending it after that.
And I will just straight up, I'm sorry, I will just say that the clerk's office really, we couldn't do much over there.
Sure.
We would have to stay here, but definitely, you have everyone in your office, you knock boxes, notary, medical closet, you know,
Right.
but
Yeah.
we wouldn't be participating in that.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Just so everybody knows.
Sure, I just bring up the
Sure.
rotation to just show my willingness to kind of share this office space with all the other
Right.
officials as well.
And it's really for the notary services that they can still do that over there.
And they are notaries, so it works out. And now the Ovation Center, only seniors can use it?
No, so it's open to the public, everyone can use it.
Mhm.
I guess the part where really only seniors can use is they need a membership in order to attend certain senior events. So for example, if you want
Line
to,
dancing, karaoke.
yeah, if you want to attend those daily events, then there is a membership cost. And I remember it was like $15 a month, it was like
Yeah.
the cost of Netflix.
And they also say they do not turn anyone away. So if somebody did have an issue with that, they, you know, talk to them. They would never turn a senior away from any of their services that they can provide.
Right. And one thing I want to point out too is regarding the lease for rent. So in the budget currently, and you know, this wasn't intentional, we've had this in previous years, is we do currently have line items for rent in senior and general assistance. And that's mainly because, you know, senior and general assistance, because those are posted in this office, which is paid primarily through the town fund, you are allowed to effectively charge rent to senior and GA to pay to use the space in the town fund. So rather than transfer that money from senior and GA to town, we could effectively use those line items to pay for this lease. I believe GA was $5,000, senior was around another $5,000. So again, if you were interested, we would just come out of those line items.
And would the partnership come from, if you decide to enter into the partnership, how much money are you talking and where does that come from?
Sure. This is where I will be fully straightforward and transparent. We did just decide to do a partnership. That would require a considerable more amount of money. And if we did decide to partner, right, and that would have to be one, an amount that the board is comfortable with, but also that the Innovation Center is you know, grateful to receive. But more than likely, we would have to amend the budget for any large project.
Do they have a minimum required for the partnership?
They do not. They do not. It's very much open to negotiation.
Is there staffing requirements when we get that space?
Yeah, I mean, once you get there, go ahead, answer this question.
I guess, should I ask you to elaborate maybe my staffing requirement?
Yeah, so you're gonna run space,
Mhm.
basically. Do you foresee more people working there?
Oh, sure.
You have somebody there every day.
Oh, yeah, no, if we did have a space, we'd have some other every day. I think it wouldn't be reasonable for us to lease out a space and then have the office closed half the week. But again, I think the way we would cover that is just by rotating
Using
people.
existing
Yeah,
staff.
exactly, exactly. So for example, my office, we have a few full-time members, and I you know, I can always think of 2 off the top of my head, not including myself, I could easily spend a day there and really just be rotating. Everyone in my office is trained, has the same skill set, nurse and notary, lockbox, medical closet, which are the 3 most highly requested resources at the township.
That was one of my, that's just one of my questions. The other question is, have you spoken something to maybe Lockport Township, sharing an office space over there? Because then, I mean, really, there's not much that we're gonna offer there other than those services you're talking about. Because Plainfield is also part of Romeo, but.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something I haven't considered, I can certainly reach out to them. One thing to consider as well is whether the Innovation Center would, I guess, allow for that, would be willing, receptive to have like a joint office. But again, that's a question I haven't asked the township yet.
I don't know, maybe we do analysis too, of how many people are coming in from that side of the bridge for medical equipment closet of this township is thriving. I mean, we are getting
Yeah.
several, as I've taken a ton of it, I'm calling upstairs all the time, so that's very popular. But what percentage are the people coming from over there? Would they go there, you know?
Right, and I mean, that's an interesting concept, and to kind of go off what you're saying, that it's very much a thriving resource. You know, on average, we see a minimum of 50 people come in to ask for medical equipment. And at the same time, we have a lot of people that donate quite a bit. And it's to the point where our closet and then our additional storage unit up in the attic are at capacity. And just a few weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago, we actually had to donate a considerable amount of, equipment to Homer Township and then as well as Homer Glen, just because of the amount of stuff we have. And again, this is already considering that we have well over 50 people a month coming to pick items up. As well, as far as an analysis, I can certainly do that. I guess the only one hesitation I have with that is there might be a little bit of bias. Again, it's the concept of if people live in Romeoville, they don't want to cross that bridge. So what's the probability that people in Romeoville are crossing over to find a medical closet? Because again, they may not be completely aware of the township resource. So I feel like, if we had a medical closet there, it may not be the same demand as people in Romeoville coming to the township, if that makes sense. Versus if we might be having 20 people from Romeoville and Crestwell now, that number might go up to 50 if we have an actual space there. That's my only thought that I have with that analysis.
And I did check for some rents in this area on Weber Road there, that high visibility, and there's some of the new spaces there that were going for about $30 a square foot. So they're giving us a decent rate as well.
Right, so it's reasonable.
Yeah. And I do think it is a great location. Again, I think it would give us some great exposure to help people on that side. I think something that we do have to discuss more in depth, and maybe we do it now, but perhaps we would do this at a special meeting, is to discuss what that partnership support would look like. So again, the lease is separate from the financial support that we could potentially offer. What I mean by that is, some organizations are choosing to just downright offering a financial support, ask people nothing in return. Here you go, here's money to get started. And then others are doing kind of what the proposal is here, which is offering a financial amount to help seniors to get relations that are started, and then you also get a lease kind of out of it. And so there is a mini proposal in that in this packet with no actual numbers, but essentially what the Innovation Center kind of proposed is there would be a lease, right, whether 5, 7, or 10-year agreement, but then there would be what we call a partnership. And what essentially what they're asking for is a set amount of money that the board is comfortable with giving, and then spread it over the course of 3 years. Now, once those 3 years are over, they're not going to request for additional partnership money. We did this out of the kindness of our heart, thank you, and then we continue from then on. We just pay the lease as normal, right? We pay the $10,000 or so a year, and then we would renew the lease, and that's it. Once you provide the partnership, you're done. You have all these perks. From then on, you just pay the lease.
You get that lease deal because you partner?
I would say yes, in the sense that there is not an option to only get the lease.
That's what I'm asking, okay. And then the partnership is 3 years spread over your contribution of whatever you're deciding So you have to agree to a partnership and you have to agree to a lease.
Correct.
Okay, and the partnership can't be given in one lump sum, you divide it up over 3 years and then you're done.
So when I spoke with the executive director, it can be one lump sum.
Okay,
Again, the 3-year partnership was just a proposal.
okay,
They wouldn't want anything past 3 years though. I think their preference was 3 years tops. If we decide that we do one lump sum in 1 year, again, that's open to negotiation as well. But I think what they would not prefer is do a sum spread over 5+ years.
and when do you have to decide this?
There is not an exact deadline for this.
Okay,
There is no deadline for this.
thank you.
Well, one question I have is, actually very prepared to answer this. Can the current board enter into expenditures that exceed our term?
Great question, I was thinking the same thing when all of this was out, but I'll have to get back to you next time. Because my question was, the 5-year lease, I could see we could do whatever the remainder of this term is, and then do 1-year renewals after that, which is what we've done in the past, if we had any obligations we're gonna pay on in terms of the board. So I would presume that would be similar to that.
Yeah. Really, just to really keep it please look that up and up with that.
Definitely.
Because that is a good concern. Yeah, again, I know the village of Wilmerville has similar terms of us, right, municipals are every 4 years, so I'd like to be optimistic, but obviously townships are different than villages as well, so, you know, opening,
Well, the other thing too is if, we can't do the lease without some kind of partnership level. They are reserving that office space for us at the front while we're deciding this.
yes, well, we're deciding this.
Yes.
I mean, it has to be a
So we don't wanna wait too long.
right, as I say, it has to be a reasonable amount. They did say, you know, for a few months, but obviously we can't wait 3+ years, et cetera. So, you know, I'll provide some information to the board. I like the board to be open-minded. This may feel like a lot, but just as a consideration, as for example, the village of Wilmerville, in their quote-unquote partnership, they passed on $2 million to the Innovation Center. Now granted, their office spaces takes up 1/5 of the entire Innovation Center, so certainly I'm not saying we should have a partnership should be of that amount, but what I'm trying to allude to is that the partnership would likely be some amount in the hundreds of thousands, so 200, 300, up to $500,000. Just to, again, I'd like everyone to have an open mind and we can discuss that.
And would it be possible to have them entertain a smaller lease to fit a term of your current board? You know, if that comes up to be, hey, we can't do, you know.
Well, that's what Gary kind of said, that.
Can you do that?
Have
Find
them
that out
move
too?
on. I'm sure that would just be in the contract,
So just
Lingo.
to make sure I understand, you're saying if in part of the negotiation, we could ask for just a 1-year lease?
Yeah,
Or
or
sure.
like a 3-year, you
Or
know.
just at the end of our terms, it has to
Right.
be kind of an out of the lease if
Right.
the new
Sure.
board does not want to pursue
Sure.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll find out all that.
It might be easy,
Sure.
right.
based on my experience, I'd say that's certainly negotiable, just on how flexible they were, but I could ask to get a more direct question. Or
And
more
I would
direct answer.
encourage anyone who hasn't been over there to check it out. It looks like a cool space for some reason.
Yeah. So, you know, having gone through this information, I guess what questions do people have? Do we feel the need to organize a special meeting to discuss this more in depth?
We probably need that answer from Gary,
Okay, first?
probably, I would think, because that could have a lot to do with how we can move forward.
We had a similar question arise when we were doing, lease versus purchase on the senior buses and other contracts. So I think and that's kind of an unusual situation where, the leases run a certain way and they're not gonna coincide exactly with, the term limits of the board. But I think, somehow we checked into that if it was at least within a year or so, just so we're not entering into a 10-year lease, that commits the board of the township beyond, our third term. So saying we wanted a 1-year lease with the intention of renewing a year from now, because that's when the board will come in.
Sure. I know I could get the answer from the executive director of the Innovation Center within, definitely before the end of this week. I guess I'll go to the attorney, not to push you on the spot, Gary. But what do you think would be your timeline to find the answer to Trustee Bates' question?
What about Wednesday, the latest?
Probably by Wednesday. Okay, so it sounds like by end of this week, we have all of our answers. Is the board receptive to us organizing a special meeting, say sometime later this month? And then if we finally don't have our answers, we can cancel the meeting? Sounds like we're receptive. Okay, in that case, what does everyone's schedule look like?
For special meeting.
That one that was canceled one?
So, workshop.
Special meetings.
Special meeting.
Again, we got a month,
Let's say, I believe our next, is the April meeting, I believe it's the first week.
Yeah, the
because the
second
town
week's
meeting-
annual town.
April 2nd, because then the town meeting's on the 9th, just for consideration, but I personally am pretty much free most of this week, or sorry, most of this month. I think only Mondays are a bit tricky for me.
Yeah, 18th, I was thinking.
Can I say that again?
I have a board meeting on the 18th.
Gotcha, so no 18, that's a better for me too. How does,
first day of spring, the 19th, on Tuesday.
how does the 19th look for everyone?
Okay.
Not good? How about just that week in general, how about the 20th?
The 20th
The
and
20th?
the 23rd.
Not the 21st? I know we don't really like Fridays.
I think maybe
Yeah,
the
there's
23rd.
the bunny thing on Thursday.
Oh, you're
Oh,
right.
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
We could have a meeting after bunny thing. Okay, so is the week of the 24th?
25th.
I could do, any day the week of the 25th.
So you're saying March 25th?
Or I am personally free anytime, I don't know what the rest of the days are.
Good Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but not the
27th is out there.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 25th.
How does the 25th or the 26th?
25th or 26th.
Okay.
I'm good the 25th and the 28th.
No?
But, there's a way, you know, if we get all this information prior to that, I can maybe have a discussion with you and or,
Okay,
my input, but that would come out.
okay. Trustee Dickens, how does your schedule look for the 25th and the 26th?
That's good.
You're good?
Yeah.
What day?
So it sounds like the 25th and 26th are both good. Does anyone have a preference?
I
One's on
expect
Monday
the
or Tuesday?
25th.
The 25th?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the 25th. What about time?
5:36?
Yes.
5:30?
If you wanna say 6, I don't know about the people who work here at the office.
Whatever works, it's just not at 4 o'clock. It had, would it be at 4:15 or later if you decide to do it after hours?
Okay. Does-
Yeah, she said 5:30 or 6, so.
Yeah.
Does 5:30 work?
That's
Let's
fine.
do March 25th, Monday, March 25th at 5:30.
So this is a maybe special meeting, correct?
Special meeting slash workshop.
Don't say workshop, can't.
Okay.
We got told.
This is a
Can't
tentative-
vote on
this
anything.
is a special meeting that's tentatively scheduled for March 25th at 5:30.
If I could, okay.
Otherwise,
And yeah, we'll confirm within the next week once we have our answers.
I know you can do it, I know y'all can do it.
Gotcha. Does anyone have any final questions or thoughts? Hearing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Denise Sabino,
Second.
second by Karen Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You wanna,
Yes, okay, before everyone leaves, I do have to run up and get the things that we're gonna have to sign and close on.